I've got a lot to say to you tonight. George Stephanopoulos is an ABC News journalist. Before that, he headed the war room for the Clinton presidency, where his job in part was to smear women who came forward and challenged Bill Clinton and exposed Bill Clinton, exposing himself to them. But I got to thinking, it's very interesting. He's telling CNN, telling them during the debate, your first big question should be, who won the 2020 election? I have a better question, George. Who won the 2000 election? What do you mean, Mark? Well, I do my research. Here's a piece from USA Today. In some ways, the dispute over the 2000 presidential election will never end. Witness Vice President Biden's comments Wednesday about predecessor Al Gore. Quote, "This man was elected president of the United States of America," Biden said at a fundraiser that Gore also attended. No. He was elected president of the United States of America, but for the good of the nation, when the bad decision, in my view, was made, he did the right thing for the nation. So we have an election denier, and his name is Joe Biden. So George Stephanopoulos, there's not a lot of this on the internet, but it didn't take me long to find this. All the media heads out there who keep asking Republicans, are you going to accept the 2024 election? Now they can ask about the 2000 election and Al Gore. And by the way, he wasn't the only one. Jimmy Carter, Hillary Clinton, a laundry list, a conga line of Democrats have said exactly the same thing. And we all know that to be the case. But I got to thinking, one of the things missing from this election is character. And the media wants you to believe the problem with character goes to Trump. I'm going to prove to you, no. The character issue is a problem with Joe Biden. Don't buy the media spin and the static. We know who they are. We know what they're up to. We know they're no damn good. And I'll prove it to you again. During the presidential debate, the second presidential debate right before the election, the last election, this issue came up of the Hunter Biden laptop. And I want to remind you exactly what took place. And there's so much more I want to talk about after you watch this.
You know who I am. You know who he is. You know his character. You know my character. You know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up. Please respond, and then we're going to have follow-up questions.
If this stuff is true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody.
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
Laptop from hell.
President Trump, we're
Nobody.
talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
And I
you've
have
just...
to respond to that.
Please,
because look,
very quickly.
there are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly
going?
what.
This is
told.
where he's going. The laptop is Russia,
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President?
again with Russia.
Here we go again with Russia. We all know the 51 who signed that letter was prepared by and for the Biden campaign at the direction of Antony Blinken. Blinken knew the letter was a farce. Sullivan, the national security advisor, knew the letter was a farce. Joe Biden knew the letter was a farce. His campaign created it and pushed it out into the media, Politico, the Washington Post, all the rest of the media. When he stood there and lied, he lied to the American people. He used a letter that he and his campaign prepared and pushed out. Joe Biden knew that was his son's laptop. All he had to do is ask him. His son knew it was his laptop. People around them knew that laptop was the real deal. And they lied to the American people to influence the election. Now, as a footnote, that means that Joe Biden committed multiple felonies. But that for another day. I touched on it the other week. Multiple felonies, according to the precedent in that fabulous Star Chamber in Manhattan, where all the grifter, ambulance-chasing lawyers, the slip-and-fall lawyers, former federal prosecutors, I suppose, at CNN and MSNBC are applauding it. Little Weissman has a man love for the judge. Well, that's the precedent that stands now, and that precedent is that when Joe Biden leaves office, he could be subjected to multiple felonies. There it is on TV. He interfered with the election. But let's talk about character, and I'm talking to you, so I'm glad you're here. Joe Biden is a psychopath liar. Liar. Biden says he was arrested during civil rights era. And this is in May. President Joe Biden has a track record of spinning tall tales about his past, including some of the PolitiFact has rated false or pants on fire. In an April 26 interview on the Howard Stern show, Biden told the talk radio star he got arrested decades ago while protesting in defense of civil rights. In January 2022, while speaking at an Atlanta campus shared by two historically black colleges, Biden invoked civil rights battles and said, "It seems like yesterday, the first time I got arrested." When we asked the White House in 2022 to clarify what arrest he was referring to, Biden team pointed us to excerpts from 3 speeches Biden had given involving the 1950s incidents in Delaware, in which people gathered to protest the sale of a home to a black couple. Police were called to the home as hundreds of people protested outside. There were a few arrests, but there is no record of Biden being arrested. We rate this as false. At the First African Methodist Episcopal Church in North Las Vegas, on February 16, 2020, Biden again used the word arrested. The Washington Post fact checker found that Biden said his mother said, "Joey, remember when they desegregated the neighborhood called Linfield? You were 13. I told you not to go there. All those people were protesting. You got arrested standing on the porch with the black family." That is a flat-out lie that he tells over and over again. Here we have 8 times Joe Biden made exaggerated and false claims about himself and his family. His elder son's death in Iraq. Beau Biden died due to brain cancer, tragically, in 2015. Circumstances of his uncle's death during World War II. Joe Biden claimed cannibals ate his uncle during World War II, which is, may I say, a bunch of baloney. Number 3, being shot in Iraq. Joe Biden was not shot at while in Iraq, despite his claims. Number 4, being at Ground Zero the day after 9/11. Joe Biden never stood at Ground Zero after the 9/11 attack on the Twin Towers. Number 5, Joe Biden claimed the helicopter he was in was forced down near Osama bin Laden lair in Afghanistan. It's a false statement. False statement. In 2008, Biden made that statement. He was traveling and was forced down in Afghanistan near the lair, he said. According to the Washington Examiner reporter Alana Goodman, the incident was not as the president claimed. Instead, it was waiting to end a sandstorm. Number 6, exaggerated a house fire. Joe Biden falsely claimed the 2004 fire at his Delaware home almost killed Jill Biden. Number 7, took part in civil rights marches. He never took part in civil rights marches. Number 8, he's coming from a family of coal miners. Joe Biden plagiarized British politician Neil Kinnock's words during his 1987 presidential bid, which brings me to that point. Joe Biden isn't lying now just because he's mentally ill, just because of his mental condition today. He's been lying his entire life. So often, so many ways, I can't even keep track of it. I've just begun. Take a look at this video.
Joseph Biden admitted today that he committed plagiarism when he was in law school. He said it was a mistake, but that it was unintentional.
He quoted 5 pages of someone else's work without proper citation.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
He was given an F.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been dumb.
To the political community in Washington, it all seems of a piece. Plagiarism at law school, plagiarism on the stump.
The great communicator. Strike that. The great imitator.
You don't steal verbatim, or when you do, as he did 99% of the time, you give credit.
Biden's critics say he sells himself as a man whose words and visions can inspire a new generation in politics. But if the thoughts, phrases, and visions really belong to others, it's a form of false advertising.
Senator Joseph Biden may have more explaining to do.
The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during an April campaign appearance in New Hampshire.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. went back to law school, and in fact ended up in the top half of my class. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only need 123 credits.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School. I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now Biden says Newsweek is right. His memory had failed.
He used phrases identical to those delivered by British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
Biden seemed to be claiming Kinnock's vision and life as his own.
Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Why is Gladys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university?
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania and come up after 12 hours and play football.
8 hours underground and then come up and play football.
It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
And it goes on and on. Character. Something Joe Biden has lacked his entire life, as a matter of fact. But let's go on. Biden repeated a version of a family anecdote he told in April. He said Tuesday, this is 2023, that his grandfather, who had worked as an oil company executive, died just days before he was born, himself in the same hospital. Biden's claim is false in 2 ways. As conservative media outlets pointed out in April, when Biden said his grandfather died in the same hospital I was born in 2 weeks before I was born, his paternal grandfather, who had worked in the oil industry, Joseph Harry Biden, died in a hospital in Baltimore, Maryland. In September 1941, the president was born more than a year later in November 1942, and in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Biden's maternal grandfather, Ambrose Joseph Finnegan, did die in the Scranton Hospital, where the president was born, but in 1957, when Joe was 14 years old. Biden in a Pittsburgh bridge collapse. Touting his administration's investments in infrastructure projects around the country, Biden invoked a 2022 bridge collapse in Pittsburgh and claimed that he personally saw the bridge collapse. Just another lie. It's not true. Biden got there and saw a collapse, quote unquote. The collapse occurred before 7 a.m. on January 28, 2022, more than 6 hours prior to Biden landing in the Pittsburgh area for a scheduled visit that included a speech about the economy and infrastructure. He visited the site of collapse after 1 p.m. that day. What else? Biden and the national debt. Biden claims that unlike the last president in my first 2 years in office, even with all we've done, I'm the first one to cut the federal debt by $1 trillion. As CNN has repeatedly noted, it is highly questionable how much credit Biden deserves for the $1.7 trillion decline in the deficit, since the decline happened overwhelmingly because emergency pandemic spending from the end of the Trump administration expired as planned. In fact, independent analysis say Biden's own new laws and executive actions have significantly added to current and projected future deficits, not reduced those deficits. Oh, I'm not done. This is from our friends at Newsbusters in 2023. Number 1, Biden's claim he never discussed Hunter's businesses with Hunter, while we have numerous occasions as a matter of proof when in fact he did. Biden lies about passing the student loan legislation. There was no student loan legislation, which is why the Supreme Court of the United States ruled it unconstitutional. So he's defying the court. Biden falsely claims his son Beau died in Iraq. Unfortunately, his son died tragically of brain cancer. Biden claims multiple times he was arrested trying to see Nelson Mandela. He was never arrested trying to see Nelson Mandela. Biden's debunked Amtrak tale. Goes on and on about his friend at Amtrak and so forth and so on. It's all part of his imagination. The man had died long before. It absolutely never happened. Biden claims price of gas is down from over $5 when I took office. That was a lie. Biden claims he was raised by Puerto Ricans. President Biden told an audience in Puerto Rico that I was sort of raised in the Puerto Rico community at home politically, despite the fact there's only about 2,000 people of Puerto Rican ancestry who lived in Delaware when he was launching his career. In any event, it's a flat-out lie. There's more. President Biden claimed last month that the Naval Academy's graduation ceremony that he was appointed to the military school in 1965 with the late Senator Caleb Boggs, but a search of Boggs' archives that fails to turn up any evidence to back the claim. Curators at the Delaware Historical Association in Wilmington were able to find records of Boggs' Academy nominations for just 1 year in the early 1960s and couldn't locate records for either 1965 or the more plausible year, 1961. That means, barring evidence from an unlikely third party, that it's probable only Biden, who often shares incorrect or exaggerated memories, can prove his claim. But he hasn't. He lied again. Joe Biden said that no amendment is absolute while discussing the Second Amendment. He does this all the time. This repeated debunked claim that cannons were prohibited when the amendment was passed. You couldn't buy a cannon. Actually, you could. Then we have this. Biden was speaking at a town hall event with veterans Friday when he repeated a false claim about the number of times he visited Iraq and Afghanistan. The issue for Biden isn't whether he lies. The issue is, when does he stop lying? CNN, for the second time in less than a week, Biden falsely claimed that the inflation rate was 9% when he began his presidency. It was 1.4%. Everybody calls him a liar, but he keeps saying it. Why? Because he wants to. Then we have this from the New York Post. In 17 minutes, Biden told nearly 15 lies in his CNN interview. I don't have time to go through this, but it's there. What's the point? Biden is a pathological liar about things big and about things small. And I want you to remember that when this debate comes up. And remember how he lied in the middle of the second presidential debate about that laptop, which he knew was real, which he knew was his son. He cites a letter which he and his campaign planted with the media. He's diabolical. He will say anything to the American people. And rather than the press being furious about the lies, no Republican get away with this. Rather than being offended at what he did during that presidential debate, they circle their wagons like the Praetorian Guard and they protect him. Joe, you got real problems. Not just losing your mind, even when you had half of a mind. You were a liar, and he still is.